Now, even though we've tested out the register method on the user model, our app is still broken. All of our auth middleware is expecting the decoded user's token to have an email property, and it no longer does. Because if we look at these middleware here, we see user email, security is looking for the email. So since these are expecting email and we're no longer using the email in the token, we're going to need to rework these functions as well as our auth routes. So let's create a new file in the middleware directory called security.test.js. security.test.js. Great. Then let's add tests for only the required authenticated user middleware. We should probably test the other two functions, but we'll wait till later for those. So we'll say const security equals require security. Const unauthorized error equals require utils errors, because we're going to need it. Then we will describe our security middleware. And we will describe test require authenticated user. Cool. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll test that it doesn't throw errors when user is present, because that's what we want. And we'll also test that it throws an unauthorized error when no user is present. And so in here, we're going to make sure that we have at least one assertion, or exactly one assertion. And then we're going to mock the request object and the response object. And we're going to mock this one with as if it had a decoded user already in it. And we'll say LeBron. We'll say for LeBron James is admin false. Great. We'll say const next equals error, and it should expect error to be falsy. And then we will actually run security dot require authenticated user with the rec, the res, and the next. And remember, we're mocking this rec, res, next function because that's what the security dot require authenticated user middleware is expecting. And so we're simply mocking it with the things we expect it to have on it in the case that we want this to actually work, so that it doesn't throw an error when the user is present. And that's why we're saying, hey, expect this error to be falsy. Now, if an error was thrown here, this next function would take that error, and it would call it with error as the first argument, meaning this would be truthy, and the whole thing would fail. So that's pretty nice. Let's do the same thing here, except let's get rid of, let's just say res.locals is an empty object. Ta-da! And then this, instead of saying error, we'll say error instance of unauthorized error to be truthy. And we'll do the same thing. So that looks pretty good. Let's save this, and let's make sure those tests are running, and at least one fails, right? npm test security.test.js. And we'll run it. Cool, one did fail. Let's see what's up. Hey, expect it to be falsy, but instead it got error unauthorized. All right, so it doesn't throw errors. I spelled that wrong. Errors when the user is present. That is not correct. Bummer. So at the moment, our middleware isn't checking for the existence of a username. It's looking for email. So that actually should be a pretty quick fix, right? So if we go into security here, instead of saying user.email, let's just say user.username. Wow, was that the easiest refactor of all time? Yes, it was. So if we run those tests, and they're all passing. However, there's still a number of places that depend on the email of the user being the primary identifier for the authenticated user, so we'll need to update those as well. For instance, whenever a user creates a post in here, Miles post, creates a post. There we go. Whenever we pass in the user, right? and then we use this subquery here to look up the user by their email. So we're gonna have to change that. And I think it's the same thing in the rating. Yeah, they both use a user here and a nice little subquery. And also, if you look at the routes, like auth router.getMe here, same thing. We're extracting the email from res.locals.user. So let's actually do this one first. Let's write a simple test for the auth.me endpoint and fix this part. But let's end this video here, and let's do that in the next video.